Most sellers seem to think selling their business is all about price. It's not. There are 7 factors that most sellers ultimately use to decide who they're going to sell their business to, and buyers tend to overlook at least 3 of them. Let's talk about it.
I'm John Mason Smith, and this is Coffee Chats with JMS. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 2 businesses in the payroll and PEO space, HireWith and Astra Acquisitions, and I've been in the payroll industry for over a decade, including starting, running, and selling a payroll firm.
The first is the most obvious one: who's going to pay the most for my book? And I think the conversation is less about maximizing who's going to pay the most, and it's more about making sure that the work you've done as a business owner is not being taken advantage of and you're getting a fair market price for your asset, that is your business. When I talk to people who are selling their businesses, most times the winner is not the person who are offered to pay the most. The second factor is the payment structures. When are you going to get paid? And how long do you have to wait for that last payment? This is going to depend on every individual's circumstances. A good rule of thumb is that the longer you're willing to wait to get paid, the more you're going to get in total. And the reason is because it is being paid out on revenue that your business is generating. This is often called seller-sided funding, because the money is really kind of the money you were going to make anyway. But hey, at least you're not having to run the operations. So that's nice. So the third factor is how much work you have to do after your business is sold. The truth of the matter is a lot of people sometimes just want to be done with their business by the time they've decided to sell it. And if the new owners need a lot of work from you or want you to be around, that can be a major factor. The other side of that coin is I know some younger business owners who've decided they're done running the operation, but they still want to be involved. And sometimes having the optionality to keep working within the new business as effectively an employee or a consultant can be a really important decision. Number 4, the employee experience. What's going to happen to all the folks that have helped you build this business along the way? Sometimes they're not going to be needed anymore. And that's where HireWith comes in. It's what my entire business has been on, is rehoming people post-acquisition. But sometimes it's about keeping the staff, or at least keeping key players. Depending on who you sell to and their internal staffing needs, you're going to get a different answer depending on what time of year and where the business cycle of that buyer is when you approach them for an exit. Number 5, client conversion experience. Basically, how hard is it going to be to convert all of your clients from the systems and the processes they're on to the systems and the processes of the new buyers? You could have 2 very similar looking buyers on paper, but one of them is able to copy and paste your database because they're on the same platform, and the other one's going to have to do a full conversion as if each client was a new client. And that can have a big impact, especially when you remember that the payment structures might be tied to the percentage of clients that successfully convert. So the difficulty of converting your clients is a factor that a lot of people sometimes forget to look at. Next, we got to talk about client retention success. Now, this is different from conversion success. The question is, are my clients still going to be clients of the new buyer in 1 year and 2 years? Sometimes when looking just at price, the seller doesn't really care. It's like, hey, I just want to get this done with. If they decide to leave, it's on them. But other times, that's going to be mission critical when it comes to the payment structure or to the overall value of the acquisition for the buyer. And so thinking about whether or not you realistically expect the new owners to be able to retain the clients based on why they came to you in the first place is a really important factor that a lot of the buyers forget about. It's pretty important to think about, what is my business going to look like in 6 months and 12 months and 24 months? And for some people, building a legacy is important, and preserving, the brand and the reputation and keeping people happy, that matters. For others, it's all about just finding that escape route. Last and definitely not least is the timeline. I can tell you I have watched deals fall apart because the perfect buyer came to the table and they were just too busy this quarter and next quarter to handle an acquisition. One of the interesting little things I've discovered is that a lot of deals fall apart at the very end when you ask for a letter of intent, right? When you ask for that LOI, because that's the moment when the buyers have to sit down, put pen on paper and commit. And they have to think to themselves, oh my God, I'm really doing this? Like, here's the team and the resources I have to put toward this. What's a reasonable number I will commit to in writing? Things aren't really real until they're in writing. And that's why when you get to the point of committing to a timeline is when you'll know if the buyer is serious, if the seller is serious. It doesn't matter what any of the other factors are. If at the end of the day, the seller wants to be done in 6 months and the buyer needs that seller to stick around for 2 years or can't do the conversion until fourth quarter or whatever the timeline might be. If those timelines between the buyer and the seller are not aligned, the deal is probably not going to happen. So to recap, the 7 decision factors: who's going to pay the most for my book? What is the structure of the payment? What are the work requirements post-sale? What's the employee experience going to be? What's the client conversion experience going to be like? How likely do we think the clients are going to stay with the new owners after the sale? And lastly, does the timeline of the buyer and seller align? It seems pretty simple. And I think intrinsically, many people in these conversations are thinking about these 7 factors, but a lot of folks don't take the time to write it down and think about the actual process realistically. It's easy to just think about who's going to pay the most for my business and think that that's the decision factor. But when you get to the end of the process and you have to sit down and have hard conversations with your team, with your clients, with your internal management staff, at the end of the day, these 7 factors tend to be much more important than who's going to pay the most for the book of business. So if you want to have more conversations like this, if you want to drill into this with me, please go to johnmasonsmith.com. Schedule time to talk to me. I love hearing from business owners and people that are buying and selling payroll companies. Cheers.